Day 8 marks the 23rd season, 1999, 20 years ago, and that was Sentai, GoGoFive. I guess just right into things I liked, things that kind of threw me off. I liked that all the Rangers are siblings and that they're related, because it really provided a different type of relationship dynamic compared to previous Super Sentai seasons that I've seen. I think one or two older ones also do something similar where they're all family or all related, but this is the first one that I had encountered where they do that. And the way that dynamic is different is because there's a history, there's a past. They grew up with each other, so they're able to pull from their previous experiences together to either remind them of a lesson or remind them of their bonds together. For some reason, it made a lot of sense that Matsuri, Gogo Pink, was the kind of held the moral compass of the team, even though Red is the older one, so he's obviously the leader, and they all have different roles. I don't know what it was, but I felt like the Toku scenes or the mecha scenes or any of the special heavy effects scenes, which is basically what Tokusatsu is, they were really good this season. And mostly because I feel like they kind of blew their budget in the first couple episodes when they're first showing off the capabilities of the mechs. Red has the ladder arm, Blue can extinguish the fires, Green can fly, and then how they can all work together. And because this is a emergency and like first aid response sort of theme, it was really cool seeing how they thought about each ranger's role, their individual jobs before they became rangers, and how they matched their mech to their purpose. And it was just really well done, really intricate. Credit to the actors who were able to really put it together, and the set designers, and all of them. It was really quite a sight to behold. Even though in terms of the visual effects, like say the fire or smoke might be old, the Toku scenes where they're using like camera trickery and a miniaturized set to really showcase the mechas, aged well, and there's a lot to be appreciated. I also like that the villains were also siblings, because it kind of provides that nice parallel between the two, especially, and that actually comes into play in how they resolve the ending. Kind of going back to the fact that all the Rangers were related and that they're all siblings. They were also able to do things like bring in some old childhood friends that they all knew. Like I think I don't have it written here, but I think one of the characters, Kyoko, who's Gogo Green's childhood friend, who's also a pilot, and then it's not obvious that there's something going on between those two, or maybe from what I'm trying to remember. And Blue had an episode about it, and Red, well, it wasn't a childhood friend, but it was a kind of a marriage interview, which was a friend of the dad. So it was kind of fun how again, just that other dynamic that they'll have. Going back to the Toku scenes real quick, in addition to really showcasing the mech, they really also had to showcase the dangers that were involved. Again, because it is a first aid and emergency response sort of motif, they really had to showcase like the emergency that was happening and how they managed to bridge the Toku scene of like the building catching on fire and like, you know, becoming unstable, and how they had to bridge that with the interior scenes with all the actors, was also really well done, and really, I feel like it put me at the edge of my seat. And just to show, again, how effective, you know, the all of them were at crafting these scenes. Although, you know, unfortunately, it was really only showcased in the first, like, few episodes, and then you kind of see a little bit of it again when they get the spaceship mech. But yeah, in the first few episodes, those were some really good Toku scenes. I guess just on to the things that kind of threw me off guard. I didn't expect the father to play such a significant role, in that, you know, he was the one who's going to bring them together. He was the one who's going to be the center of the conflict, because he had been gone for so long, trying to, you know, make the mechs and the suits and the gadgets and the powers and all that stuff, kind of foreseeing the oncoming threat. Not unlike Superman's dad. And then how they kind of fit in the mother subplot, like a few episodes towards the end, just to make that nice happy ending, even though it did feel kind of abrupt in the way that it concluded that way. But I guess it was just kind of the natural progression of how that was going to go. And no, I don't have a VHS at the time. Well, that's not technically true. I technically do have it, but it is it's actually the Lost Galaxy and Lightspeed Rescue, like, team up episode. And, you know, technically I didn't watch I haven't seen any of the team up episodes, actually, so that's why I didn't bring it out this time. I don't even know why I brought it up. I just wanted to mention it because I was kind of on a streak, and then, well, the streak's ended. I was a little sad that there was no Sixth Ranger or Extra Ranger. I mean, unless you count the summer movie, from what I've read. But it's not like they really make an appearance, you know, throughout the series. So, yeah, I was a little sad that there was no Sixth Ranger or Extra Ranger. But it did kind of introduce me to, I forget what they call it, but the boy Robos in the Super Sentai series. I guess technically O-Ranger had one. It was the wheel thing that transformed. But I felt like with this one, it kind of counts differently, because it could actually talk and communicate with the Rangers, and that was technically their Sixth Ranger, kinda. Or I think the episode that introduced it was actually like a new warrior is born, or a new warrior joins the team, or something, or like the sixth warrior arrives, but it technically isn't a ranger. It's a AI sentient mech, which is interesting, but, you know, I like the whole Sixth Ranger thing. I mean, especially because Lightspeed Rescue was the first one to have its own All-American Ranger, as a ranger that never appeared in the Super Sentai, so that was pretty cool. So I guess just on to my favorite episode. I was really debating between this episode and another episode, so I'll just talk about this episode, and, you know, I'll briefly bring up the episode that I was going to choose as my favorite, or the one that stood out, and the reasoning is pretty similar, so I'll explain when I get there, which is soon. So my favorite episode was episode 34, and the name of it was Death, Else Destruction. It was a pretty hard translation, so it probably sounds better in Japanese. I don't know why I didn't just write these down and say these in Japanese, but whatever. What happens in this episode is the Rangers encounter a monster that infects them with a plant, or it doesn't really infect them. It attaches a plant to them. It's indestructible. They can't take it off. They can't burn it. They can't saw it. They can't pry it off or anything. And the thing about the plant is, I think after a certain amount of time, the plant will bloom, releasing spores into the world that will kill everyone and, destroy the world and destroy the earth. So it's literally a matter of, it's the 5 of them or the whole world. It was a pretty gripping episode because, they're trying to do all these things and they think they had an antidote or a poison that was going to kill the plant, but, that plan goes to crap and it's like 10 minutes left. And so the Rangers pull up to the side of a lake, all in their van, and Matoi Go Red pulls out an incendiary grenade, and he literally mentions, well, the 5 of us or the world, and they're all contemplating group suicide to save the world. And when I watched it, I was like, holy crap, that is dark. That is heavy moral dilemma that as a child I would have never picked up on. It's small things like that make me go, this was a kid show? That was heavy. I mean, after, they eventually find a way to handle the situation, which, they go into space, that deprives the plant of oxygen and eventually kills it. So, but that was a risky move. And then, from there, it's pretty standard. Super Sentai, defeat the monster, and things like that. But, man, that moment, that scene was heavy and dark and really actually well done, especially the way Matsuri Go Pink is the one who, they don't really get close to pulling the pin on the grenade or whatever. When they're all sitting there thinking about it, she opens the door of the van, she runs out and just yells into the world saying, she doesn't want to die. She wants to live. She wants to see the green earth and the blue sky and the blue ocean and all that stuff. Again, because she is kind of the moral compass of the team, all the other Rangers kind of join them, and, they say that they're afraid too, and they don't want to die either. And I think the thing that really sums up that scene nicely before they eventually figured out a way to handle the situation is when Matoi Go Red puts the grenade back in his pocket and just kind of joins them again and says, yep, we'll get through it, because they're not going to give up, even though there's like 5 minutes left. And, I think the thing that really defined the moment is when he says, it's okay for us to want to be saved too. So, I think the reason why I chose this as my favorite episode between this and the other one is because I watched this in April. So, another thing that was consuming my life at the time was none other than Avengers Endgame. And, kind of going through the episodes again, just kind of thinking about which one it was going to be. It reminded me of the end of Endgame, where you see Captain America sitting on the bench. You realize he got to live the life that he wanted. He finally got to dance with Peggy. And, it was something that he wrestled with his entire time as Captain America, was that, he wasn't gonna get to live the life that he wanted. But, after Tony's death, he reconsidered and, eventually realized that he could live a life. He could live the life that he wanted. And, not to get too deep, but, I have had some of my own struggles with that. So, that was the reason I think that I chose that as my favorite episode. And just to give a bit of context, the other episode I was going to choose was when, it was a 2-part episode, and they get beat badly by some, elite force villains or something. At the end of the first part of the episode, they all had to separate, it's raining, and they all had to reconvene. The next episode, they're all trying to repair their gear, but then they're also trying to fix their nerves, and, they're scared. And I have never seen a Super Sentai team defeated so badly. And I guess, again, since it was April, so it wasn't necessarily Endgame, but I had Infinity War on my mind because, at the time, leading up to Endgame's release, I was watching every MCU movie. So, it reminded me of the end of Infinity War, where they're just defeated. And at first that was going to be my favorite episode, because I had never seen a Super Sentai team defeated so badly. And so, they're so scared, they're so shocked, they're, trying to rack their nerves. But then after seeing Endgame, my favorite episode ended up being the one I just mentioned.